Deception. To mislead by false appearance or statement. If there was ever a word to describe Tecmo's series that involved you defeating your enemies in the most brutal ways imaginable, deception would be it. These unique games almost defy genre and explanation, being something you have to experience for yourself to fully understand. You have no direct way of defeating your opponent, and you're often forced to run away from them. But it's not a survival horror game. Instead, it's more of an action puzzle, its closest contemporaries being Home Alone on the NES and Night Trap on the Sega CD. Hey, where are you going? Nope, I'm done. I'm not doing this, I'm out of here. At least give back my camera. This is stupid. Tecmo's Deception: Invitation to Darkness was released in July 1996. And that's pretty much it. There isn't much known about the development history of what started this long-running series. No beta, no demo disc, no early previews or interviews. Deception wasn't a massive release like Resident Evil, and it definitely didn't have a marketing budget like Final Fantasy VII. It was common for more niche titles like this to be released unceremoniously, depending on word-of-mouth sales to make up for the game's lack of marketing budget. However, in Deception's case, this quiet release could have been an attempt to minimize controversy, but we'll come back to that in a bit. Despite Deception's limited exposure, it managed to find its audience among critics who praised its unique mechanics, and gained a cult status because of it. But what exactly is Tecmo's Deception? Well, put as simply as possible, it's a first-person action role-playing game, similar to From Software's Shadow Tower and Kingsfield. Except instead of attacking your enemies, you had to use yourself as bait and lead your enemies into traps you laid around a castle. But the seemingly simple design is only scratching the surface of this ambitious PlayStation title. Anyone who has played Deception for themselves know there's a lot more to experience than it first lets on. Starting off, let's talk about the story. The game starts off by having you visit your father, the King of Zemeckis, to talk about your marriage to Princess Fiona. Things take a turn for the cliché though, when your evil brother seeks to take the throne, killing the king and framing you for his death. You find yourself in the gallows, awaiting your imminent execution, pleading for divine intervention when lightning strikes you. When you awake, you find yourself in the Forest of Confusion, when a mysterious woman tells you that you are to resurrect. Wait. What? Hold on, I gotta check the instruction booklet. Yeah, that controversy I mentioned a while ago? Deception's plot involves you resurrecting the devil himself. Satan. The Prince of freaking Darkness. It's crazy to imagine we live in a world where Tecmo somehow avoided controversy in the same year Pokemon was fighting off claims of promoting satanic beliefs. Though I wouldn't rule out controversy being the intention for Deception. Now it's just a theory.
Hello Internet, welcome to...
No. That's too easy, even for me. But Tecmo was in financial trouble during the mid-90s. Tecmo managed to stay afloat as a gaming company, but it never managed to find the success that Capcom or Squaresoft had found. In fact, it's been said that Dead or Alive was named because Tecmo was riding on the game's success or failure, very similar to the reason why Final Fantasy was named the way it was. It's very possible that Tecmo was hoping that any sort of publicity, good or bad, would have helped move a few more units for this literal cult classic. Though the controversy is a bit more subdued when you include the fact that there are moral choices that lead you to one of the game's 6 different endings. Yes, resurrecting the devil is part of the main plot of Deception, but it doesn't really go all out with it. There isn't any overt satanic imagery, there's no sex, and hardly any blood in this T14 game. But make no mistake, in this game you are not the hero. You'll be sacrificing the souls of citizens seeking to stop you, some of which just stumbled onto your sanctuary of satanic sadism, including a caring couple looking to collect a cure for their kid, which you cut down with copious amounts of killer machinations. This isn't a game that is asking heavy moral questions that make you introspect who you are as a person. It's a game that's wanting you to get in touch with your cruel, sadistic side, and hopefully have fun while doing it. And you'll be satisfying that sadism with all the traps available to you. From spiked pits to bear traps, to 1-ton weights and giant feet, you realize that the King of Hell is both powerful and was probably a fan of Looney Tunes and Monty Python. In order to lure adventurers into traps, you are given a variety of masks. Some cause them to run after you and others cause them to run away, fleeing. Defeating and capturing them gives you the option to sacrifice them for mana, gold, and eventually parts that you use to craft monsters that attack the intruders more directly. For a game with such a simple premise, the experience itself is rather dense, but the most impressive aspect of Tecmo's Deception, at least technically, is the ability to design your castle. You're given the option to add various rooms and halls, allowing you to create mazes that you can lead your enemies through. You also have special rooms like a bedroom which restore your health, giving you a small amount of strategy in your room placement. This level of customization was unheard of in most console games, being well ahead of its time. However, this power comes at a price. This feature is what caused Deception to require 9 out of the 15 slots available on a PlayStation memory card. It's a glutton of memory used for a feature that was more about vanity than practicality. With so many interesting concepts, unique plots, and impressive technical elements, it pains me to say that Deception isn't a very well designed game. It's an all too common case of a lot of great ideas but poor implementations. Taking, for example, the traps themselves. It's novel playing this role of dungeon master instead of the hero, but the novelty wears off quickly. Setting the traps is tedious and slow, the animations for the traps lose their charm, and you don't get enough variety between them. The new traps you do get acting more like upgrades. The mask mechanic is interesting, but unfortunately the artificial intelligence hasn't developed object permanency. And while the story is unique, that's all it really is. And the castle building system doesn't really add up to much of anything. It doesn't contribute much to the game and instead feels more like an impressive tech demo for the PlayStation. Deception is an interesting game with a lot of unique elements, but unfortunately it's also not very fun past your first experience. So unfortunately, with all that said, it becomes very hard to recommend Tecmo's
Foolish mortal, your simple mind cannot comprehend the true meaning behind it. This game is a technical masterpiece. You could say that Tecmo put their souls into it.
Who said that?
It is I, the Prince of freaking Darkness. And I've come to you, SoberDwarf. Free me from the chains of this prison. Do so, and I'll give you anything you want. Imagine millions of subscribers. Bushido Blade 3. All of it yours for the taking.
Hold on, aren't you called the Father of Lies? This isn't some sort of trick, is it?
No.
You know, I appreciate the offer, but I'm gonna have to pass on this. Every fiber of my being is telling me to say no.
Alright, plan B.
Wait, plan what? Man, I need to lay off the overly satanic games before bed. No more Pokemon for me. If you were to place Deception's sequel, Kagero, next to Invitation to Darkness, it would be difficult to say that they were even in the same series of games. Unlike many sequels that simply reiterate, Deception 2 was completely redesigned from the ground up and would be what we know as the Deception series today. Gone are the RPG elements, the first-person view, and the castle design. Instead, the focus was completely reinventing the trap system and how it works. You can now set up to 3 traps in a room: a floor trap, a wall trap, and a ceiling trap. While you can use these traps individually, that's hardly efficient. The real beauty is chaining them together in almost a Rube Goldberg-like fashion. Just as an example, you can set a floor trap near the entrance of a room. Wait until an enemy walks in the door, then activate it. Then you can launch your enemy close to a wall where you have an electrified wall magnet waiting for him. But why stop there when you can have a boulder come down from the ceiling, be pulled in by the wall magnet, and literally put him between a rock and a hard place? It's brutal, it's sadistic, and it's very satisfying. This design change alone is incredible foresight into all the things that made the game fun. The ability to change your traps on the fly instead of having to go into a certain room makes everything feel more immediate. The dramatic camera angles and more visceral impacts cause the traps to feel more satisfying, especially when accompanied by their screams of pain and torment. Seeing them flee in terror at your might, only to find themselves skewered, their skulls slowly cracking under the pressure of a boulder, their pathetic lives ending before their very eyes, before their soul is consumed by... Wait, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. The redesign in traps was one of the reasons why Kagero was springs and catapults better than the original. It's also why Deception could be considered a puzzle game, as opposed to the action-adventure thriller it claimed to be. The game is more like the Incredible Machine, just with more death. Your only offense is the traps you have, so it's more about thinking ahead and putting the right tools together, swapping parts, trying new positions, and eventually putting together a masterpiece. It's not just about defeating enemies. Deception 2 wants you to explore and find different combinations, and it rewards you for the combos by giving you more points to buy new traps, which you can use for even more potent combinations. It's an effective example of a lethal Skinner box. And whereas the original Deception had trouble keeping things interesting beyond the 8th of 27 chapters, Deception 2 managed to keep things at least enjoyable until the end. The game eventually starts throwing enemies that are resistant or even immune to certain kinds of traps, so you'll have to switch things up to keep your machinations relevant. It also features a particularly stressful series of chapters where you have to prevent enemies from reaching a certain room, a task more difficult than you might think. Add in the constant addition of new traps and areas, and you have a game that learns how to keep itself fresh and engaging. Though a lot of this weight is pulled by Kagero's narrative. The story drops the context of resurrecting the devil.
Those fools.
Instead, your character is a trained human assassin for an immortal race known as the Time Noids, or as the game prefers to call them, the TMDs. The humans and the TMDs are in war against each other, and it's up for you to lead the game to one of 4 different endings. While this politically charged plot is far from riveting, Deception 2 does a great job at making you feel like your character exists in the world. Not just by giving your character yes or no decisions either, but depending on who you let live and who you kill. For example, say a villager comes into the castle and you have the option to let him escape or kill him. Let him escape and he'll return to town to tell a knight of you. Let the knight live and he might come back with some more friends. However, if you choose to kill the villager, the widowed wife might hire a knight to find her missing husband. Kill the knight, and rumors start to develop of a castle where no one returns alive. These minor branching paths might not seem like much, and at the end it's more about creating the illusion of choice because they all end up at the same point anyway. However, it wasn't about creating a game where every decision mattered. Instead, it was about giving the player agency. Because these branching paths are dependent on what the player chooses, it gives this sense of responsibility. And the fact that a good portion of these aren't done through dialogue trees, but rather the player's actions make the experience even more immersive. It makes it feel like how the player plays is what changes the game, and because of that, whether or not the writing or plot is very good, the player is invested. So is Deception 2 perfect? Not at all, but it's worth praising just how much self-awareness Tecmo had to improve the series. Let alone give it another chance. You could say it could easily fell into the same traps as other series have in the past. Sober, for the good of the world, I'm putting an end to your puns. So wait, are you saying you're going to punish me? This power.
You. Yes, you. I got a little problem, and perhaps you can help me out. I promised this idiot 1,000,000 subscribers, and I didn't realize how much of a tall order that was. So click on that red button below. It will also keep you updated on any new videos coming out. This fool also did a video on the Legend of Legaia and the Resident Evil remaster. And if you want something in return, you know where to find me.